Thank you for joining us on our latest episode of our podcast series, Sharing the Legacy. My name is Daniel D'Amico, and I am the Worship Arts Director here at First Lutheran Church. On today's episode, we will hear three pieces written by Marianna Malm and shared by former council presidents Dave Rogness, Marie Swanson, and Tom Espel. These were shared within worship and are part of our recognizing and sharing our history as we celebrate our 150th anniversary coming up here on November 13th.
At this time, I would like to invite forward Dave Rogness to share the legacy of First Lutheran Church here on Broadway. Dave has been was council president 2015, 2016, and has had a myriad of leadership roles here, and so he will share with us parts of our history.
Thank you, Steph. Morning. As prelude to the anniversary of First Lutheran sesquicentennial, that's a big word, next month, this week's memories focus on the genesis of our church with a familiar in the beginning. First Lutheran's beginnings date to 1872, when the Reverend Niels T. Ylvisaker and 30 other adults conducted its first public worship as the first Norwegian Evangelical Lutheran congregation in a farmhouse across the Red River in Moorhead, Minnesota. A year later, in 1873, when a 5-paragraph church constitution was adopted, a group of families from Moorhead and Fargo secured a permanent pastor when the Reverend Johannes Hellesvet accepted a call and served in the church until 1876. During his ministry, the congregation's first church was built in 1874 in Moorhead, but sold it in 1878 because the financial burden was too great. The congregation then chose to rent meeting facilities in Fargo, transplanting themselves to North Dakota in various locations, including services in rented store buildings and even the courthouse. In 1893, Reverend J.J. Haye was called as the new pastor, and a committee began investigating a possible site for a new church. His homeless congregation in 1895 agreed upon a church to be built on the corner of Roberts Street and 4th Avenue North for $14,000, with a membership growth from 31 to 283 persons. Records indicate that the church was to be completed almost without debt, according to the Fargo Forum news story. In the beginning, the congregation had no synodical connection, but affiliated with the United Norwegian Lutheran Church in America. Another Fargo church, St. Paul's Lutheran Church, had organized in 1903 and had developed an aggressive program of church work, including Ladies' Aid and a Young People's League. A year before the end of World War I, the First Norwegian Evangelical Lutheran Church and St. Paul's Evangelical Lutheran Church merged in September 17, 1917, to create First Lutheran Church. While no records outline the formal negotiations, committees were formed acknowledging the pioneers of First Lutheran Church were made up of mature churchmen, well-grounded in Christian doctrine, devoted to congregational work with mature Christian faith. History chronicles the congregation came to maintain a significant church life extended over the pastorates of Reverend J.D. Runsvold and the Reverend S.A. Berge. No sooner had the new congregation been established than it set to work on erecting a new church. 6 weeks after an organizational meeting was held, a congregational meeting determined a new church building site. Evangelist and ministry pioneer D.L. Murdy noted, "If God is your partner, make your plans big." God was certainly a partner with members of First Lutheran Church with their big plans, as in June 1919, the cornerstone of a new church was formally laid at 619 Broadway, and on December 25th of that same year, they held Christmas services in the basement. 2 years later, in 1921, Christmas services were then held in the church sanctuary as we know it today. Now, as we gather at this time, we thank and celebrate those faithful servants who came before us through First Lutheran's 150 years.
As we look forward to our 150th celebration, we learned last week evangelist and ministry pioneer D.L. Moody noted, "If God is your partner, make your plans big." God was certainly a partner with members of First Lutheran Church when their big plans began in June 1919. The cornerstone of a new Lutheran church was laid at 619 Broadway, and on December 25th of that same year, they held Christmas services in the basement. 2 years later, in 1921, Christmas services were then held in the church sanctuary as we know it today. A congregation of a little over 500 souls erected a church with a seating capacity of well over 1,000, developing a Central City church for a growing community. It was said, "The enterprise was one of courage, the task was burdensome, the faith was heroic, as members truly had great vision." Pastor J.D. Runsvold stated his prediction when he declared, "Mark my words, they will come by the thousands." Indeed, within a decade, membership grew from 525 in 1918 to well over 2,000 in 1928. Services increased. Sunday school attendance grew to nearly 700 with 90 teachers, and new staff positions were added. Foremost for the spiritual leaders of First Lutheran was not the numerical growth, but the passionate concern of soul winning, stating, "The concern now must not be chiefly or even largely in that growth, but in cultivating more intensively the field we have." First Lutheran's history records the debt burden was a spiritual blessing as it united the members in a common significant enterprise. With its Diamond Jubilee appeal, every contribution was a thank offering, and by December 1st, 1946, a service of praise and thanksgiving was held in gratitude for a debt-free church. Originally, stained glass windows were an important art form. Beyond their beauty, they provided members with biblical scenes to view, to think about, and to understand Christ's death on the cross and his resurrection along with other lessons. In 1957, the installation of stained glass windows was completed, which complemented the older resurrection window located above the Broadway entrance to the sanctuary. It was in 1962 that an additional visual lesson became part of our church with the installation of a commissioned mosaic by Cyrus M. Running, department chair of Concordia's art department at that time. First creating a watercolor model, Running began working on the altar wall mosaic that measures 32 feet by 24 feet. It is interesting to note a steelwork frame supports 67 sections, each weighing 50 pounds, composed of 1-inch square tessera totaling 200,000 tiles in 27 different colors. Today, First Lutheran has continued to enhance church surroundings with additional stained glass work, framed prints from the St. John's Bible commissioned for a new millennium, and sculpture in keeping with an appreciation of enhancing biblical lessons and teaching through art. Sculptor and artist Michelangelo claimed, "The true work of art is but a shadow of the divine perfection, reminding us of God's presence in our lives."
Our mission statement of First Lutheran Church is to bring people into a relationship with Jesus Christ and to help them grow in the Christian faith. Throughout our history, we have continued to carry out that strong belief, not only in our community or within the United States, but also globally as well. While the early membership of First Lutheran showed sound judgment in building a church in 1917 large enough for significant growth, that entire financial burden fell on its 523 members. While the debt was steadily reduced, members were also faced with the economic depression of the 1930s. And to save money, the assistant pastor's position had to be eliminated. Furthermore, Pastor S.A. Berge voluntarily cut his own salary to operate the church, within its budget. Their ongoing vigilance and stewardship proved to aid in its continued growth, as there was a demand for Sunday school classrooms. On March 6, 1941, property south of the church was purchased for $5,000, and eventually to erect a parish education wing, a building where the construction would begin a decade later. However, realizing the growth of the community, First Lutheran, after a special congregational meeting, purchased property at 25th Avenue North and Broadway in 1954. These 5 acres of farmland, surrounded by a few homes in a growing area of North Fargo, would be the site of a new Lutheran congregation known today as Hope Lutheran. Once again, the mission of First Lutheran to help others grow in the Christian faith was realized. In 2003, a financial gift of an 11-acre parcel of land was given anonymously, with others from the congregation pledging to partner in a faith venture to see a new place of worship. With a congregational vote in 2004 recognizing Fargo's growing population to the south of the city, construction began. First Lutheran's associate pastor, the Reverend Pastor Corey Furman, accepted the call to serve this new congregation as the first minister at Living Waters, which held its first service September 11, 2005, in a newly built church known for its roof replicating a wave on water. With missional vision, First Lutheran took on a new dimension when the congregation voted to support its first missionaries on a foreign mission field by selecting 2 families to serve in Cameroon, Africa, beginning in 1959. This focus on global outreach continues to this day through the work of our Global Mission Committee. Throughout the years, First Lutheran has sponsored over 25 missionaries in 10 countries from China to Nepal. While there are actively 8 projects that receive monthly financial support from First Lutheran, there are numerous projects sponsored every year, such as Lutheran World Relief, Christmas Shoebox, or those programs such as Feed My Starving Children, or Amistad, or Wellspring Endeavors, bringing much-needed water to remote villages of Africa. Multiple mission teams over the last 25 years have traveled or continue to travel to Mexico, Slovakia, Ecuador, Haiti, Madagascar, Ethiopia, and Malawi, Africa. Lay Pastor Raleigh Johnson has led trips for youth and adults to Mexico since 1995, while teams teaching English or leading VBS during the summer in Slovakia began 5 years later. One member shared how overwhelming it is to think how God uses people and funds from North Dakota to make a difference in the lives of people all over the globe with such powerful work. These teams certainly live out our global missions vision to share the gospel of Jesus Christ with the cultures and peoples throughout the world. Whether miles away or within our community, First Lutheran continues its mission work with gratitude for the financial support and faithful prayers of each member within our congregation, and along with our church community, enjoying those delicious mission soup Sunday meals. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. Thank you for taking the time to just spend listening and learning about the history of First Lutheran Church. Stay tuned for further episodes as we continue to talk with some of the legends of our faith. And hopefully you'll join us here on November 13th as we celebrate our 150th anniversary. Be good, have a blessed day, and we'll see you soon.